The Galactic Empire had always prided itself on its dominance, spanning thousands of star systems, subjugating countless species, and enforcing its will with unmatched technology and firepower. For centuries, its expansion had gone uncontested. When they encountered a planet that refused their emissaries and ignored their demands, they thought little of it. Earth, they assumed, was an anomaly, a small, insignificant rock clinging to a quiet corner of the galaxy. It would fall in line like all the others. Admiral Targos stood aboard the flagship Dominion's Wrath, gazing at the holographic display of the Sol system. His sharp eyes scanned the reports from reconnaissance probes, each one highlighting Earth's curious lack of orbital defenses. No fleets patrolling its skies, no energy signatures indicative of planetary shields. It was almost disappointing. Primitive, Targos muttered, turning to his second-in-command, Commander Vera. They have no idea what's coming. Vera hesitated. She had reviewed the same reports and couldn't shake an unease gnawing at the edges of her thoughts. The silence from Earth was unnatural. No diplomatic outreach, no threats, no signs of panic. Admiral, if I may, their lack of response is unusual. Every species we've encountered before has either resisted or submitted. But Earth is terrified, Targos interrupted, his voice sharp. They see the might of the Empire and no resistance is futile. They are frozen by fear, Commander. Nothing more. The Council had debated the matter for months, their deliberations fueled by rumors and half-truths about Earth's history. Stories of alien incursions repelled, of unknown forces that had torn apart hostile fleets long before the Empire's rise. Some dismissed these tales as myths, fabrications of a backwater species trying to mask its vulnerability. Others argued for caution. Targos had no patience for caution. He saw Earth's defiance as a challenge to the Empire's authority, a spark that needed to be extinguished before it ignited rebellion elsewhere. The Emperor himself had approved the operation, declaring Earth a rogue element that needed to be brought under control. The fleet mobilized, a show of force designed to overwhelm and intimidate. Dozens of warships, each bristling with weapons capable of reducing planets to rubble, set course for the Sol system. Victory was inevitable. As the fleet crossed into the outer edges of Earth's system, the tension aboard the Dominion's Wrath began to build. Scans revealed nothing unusual. A scattering of satellites, a few outdated orbital stations, and a single moon. No defense grids, no signs of advanced military infrastructure. Yet the silence persisted. Targos dismissed the unease among his crew as nerves. He called for a system-wide broadcast, his voice sharp and commanding as it echoed through the vastness of space. People of Earth, you stand before the might of the Galactic Empire. Surrender now, and your planet will be spared. Resist, and you will be destroyed. You have one Earth day to comply. The response was absolute silence. No transmissions, no movement, nothing. Targos frowned. Are we sure they're receiving our signal? Confirmed, Admiral, Vera replied, her voice tight. All frequencies are being monitored. They can hear us. Targos turned back to the holographic display, his frustration mounting. Then they're fools. Begin the advance. If they won't respond, we'll make them. The fleet moved closer, their scanners sweeping the planet. The cities below appeared bustling with life, but there were no signs of preparation for an attack. No evacuations, no mobilization of forces. It was as if the people of Earth were unaware of the impending invasion, or worse, indifferent to it. Vera couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. She had studied countless conquests, and this didn't fit any pattern she knew. Admiral, perhaps we should reconsider. There's no resistance, but it's too quiet. Targos glared at her. Quiet because they have nothing to say. This is a pathetic, isolated planet, Commander. They lack the means to resist. You're letting shadows spook you. Vera fell silent, but her unease remained. As the fleet closed in, she couldn't help but wonder, why wasn't Earth afraid? The fleet moved into Earth's orbit, a formation of imperial power casting shadows over the blue planet. From the bridge of Dominion's Wrath, Admiral Targos issued the order. The declaration of war was transmitted on every channel, his voice firm, his words deliberate. The ultimatum was clear: surrender immediately or face annihilation. But the silence continued. Earth gave no sign it had received the message, no sign it even cared. Frustration simmered among the crew. Targos paced the bridge, glancing at the tactical displays. "Commence Phase 1, he ordered. "Target the largest population centers. Let them know we mean business." The fleet's weapons powered up, energy cannons charging as coordinates were locked. From Earth's surface, there were no defensive responses, no shields raised to protect its cities. The Empire's officers exchanged uneasy glances, but the commands were clear. On Targos's mark, the first volley was unleashed. Beams of energy streaked toward the planet, their brilliance cutting through the void. The crew expected the usual spectacle of destruction: explosions, firestorms, crumbling skyscrapers. But what they witnessed instead was inexplicable. The weapons simply disappeared mid-flight, their energy dissipating as if absorbed by an unseen force. The crew stared in stunned silence. "Report," Targos barked. "What just happened?" "Admiral," one of the technicians stammered, his voice shaking. "The attacks. They didn't connect. No damage detected. It's like the planet absorbed the energy." "Impossible," Targos snapped. "Run diagnostics. Fire again. Double the output." Another volley was unleashed, this time with greater intensity. The result was the same. The energy vanished before it could touch the surface. Targos gripped the edge of the command console, his knuckles white. For the first time, doubt flickered in his mind. Earth's silence was no longer indifference. It was a statement. The bridge buzzed with activity as officers scrambled to make sense of the situation. Scans revealed no energy fields, no trace of any technology that could intercept such an assault. The planet appeared defenseless, yet their most advanced weapons were rendered useless. "Admiral," Vera said quietly, her voice betraying her unease, "we should reconsider our approach. Something is protecting them, and we have no data on what it is." Targos refused to back down. "They're bluffing. Whatever this is, it's a trick. Prepare ground forces. If we can't break them from orbit, we'll take the fight to their surface." Even as he gave the command, strange anomalies began to ripple through the fleet. Communications grew distorted, filled with static and faint whispers in unfamiliar languages. Navigation systems flickered, unable to lock onto coordinates. Even life support systems showed momentary glitches. The atmosphere aboard the fleet shifted from confidence to unease. The whispers grew louder. Screens on the bridge flickered, displaying cryptic messages in Earth's native languages. One phrase repeated itself in stark white letters: "Leave." A chill swept through the crew. For all their training and experience, this was something they couldn't comprehend. The message wasn't a request. It was a warning. Targos clenched his jaw, refusing to be intimidated. "Ignore it," he growled. "Whatever game they're playing, we won't be cowed." But the crew's morale was cracking. Reports streamed in from other ships. Unexplained power surges, minor system failures, and increasing panic among soldiers. The fleet, which had seemed so invincible, was unraveling under the weight of Earth's silent defiance. When a scouting vessel was sent to the surface to test Earth's defenses, it vanished. No explosion, no debris, no trace of its existence. The ship was simply gone. The Empire had never encountered anything like this. Each passing moment eroded the fleet's confidence, the silence from Earth growing louder and more oppressive. "Admiral," Vera said again, her voice firmer this time, "we are facing something beyond our understanding. We need to fall back and regroup." Targos glared at her, but he couldn't ignore the fear in the eyes of his crew. He turned back to the display of Earth, its serene surface untouched by the chaos above. For the first time, he wondered if he had made a mistake. The first sign of Earth's response came without warning. The flagship sensors registered an energy surge, faint at first but rapidly intensifying. Before the crew could react, one of the Empire's destroyers was struck by an invisible force. No explosion, no visible weapon, just a sudden, catastrophic shutdown. The massive warship drifted lifelessly, its systems offline, its crew scrambling for answers. Targos slammed his fist against the console. What hit them? Report. Unknown, Admiral, a technician replied, panic creeping into his voice. No projectile, no energy signature. It's as if their systems just stopped. Before the crew could recover, another destroyer was disabled, its engines flickering out like dying stars. Ship after ship fell silent, rendered inert by an unseen hand. The Empire's fleet, a testament to its technological might, was being dismantled with surgical precision. Targos refused to accept what he was seeing. Activate countermeasures. Scan for cloaked vessels. There has to be something out there. The scans revealed nothing. No enemy ships, no orbital weapons, no detectable source of the attacks. Earth remained as it had been. Silent, unyielding, and utterly untouchable. Yet the fleet's disarray continued. Communications between ships failed, navigational systems spun into chaos, and weapon controls locked themselves in place. Then came the first direct message from Earth. It appeared simultaneously on every monitor. A simple phrase glowing in stark, white letters. This is your only warning. The voice that followed was calm, unyielding, and undeniably human. Your aggression is unwelcome. Your presence is a threat. Leave now or face the consequences. Targos's jaw tightened as he stared at the words. He refused to be cowed by an enemy that refused to show itself. Transmit a response. Tell them the Empire does not bow to threats. The transmission was sent, but there was no reply. Instead, the dismantling of the fleet continued. Imperial cruisers lost gravity control, their crews floating helplessly as artificial environments collapsed. Advanced shielding systems, impervious to known weapons, disintegrated as though peeled apart by invisible hands. Vera approached Targos, her voice steady but urgent. Admiral, we're losing this battle without a single shot fired. We have no defense against this. We need to retreat. No, Targos snapped. We've faced unknown technologies before. We will adapt. We will prevail. They cannot. The lights on the bridge dimmed. The air grew heavy, oppressive. The crew froze as a holographic projection materialized before them. It wasn't a figure or a fleet, but a map of the galaxy. A single point lit up, marking Earth, its brilliance pulsing like a warning beacon. Slowly, more points appeared, scattered across the galaxy. Systems the Empire had conquered. Each one blinked out, their light extinguished. A cold voice accompanied the display. Your Empire is not invincible. You have overreached. As the last conquered system vanished from the map, the hologram dissolved into darkness. The message was clear. Earth was not just defending itself. It was making a statement. Humanity had learned from centuries of watching, preparing for the inevitable. They were not the primitive prey the Empire had assumed. The crew on the bridge stood in stunned silence, the weight of Earth's response crushing their arrogance. Even Targos, defiant as ever, couldn't ignore the dread creeping into his thoughts. Earth's power wasn't just superior, it was incomprehensible. Moments later, the flagship system sputtered, the engines powering down, leaving the massive vessel adrift. Targos gripped the console, his voice shaking with rage. Reboot the systems. Regain control. But no one moved. The crew was paralyzed, their confidence shattered. Earth's silence had been a weapon in itself, and now its quiet retaliation had left them utterly exposed. This was no ordinary planet. This was something far beyond the Empire's comprehension, and they had awakened it. As the fleet drifted helplessly above Earth, Targos's confidence wavered, though his pride refused to let him admit defeat. His voice cut through the tense silence. This isn't over. Earth's tricks won't save them forever. We are the Empire. We do not retreat. The crew, however, was no longer convinced. Whispers filled the bridge, officers exchanging uncertain glances. For all their training, none had been prepared for this. An enemy that defied logic, one that fought without fleets or weapons yet left destruction in its wake. And then the final act began. The stars outside the viewport dimmed. One by one, they seemed to vanish, swallowed by an encroaching blackness. It wasn't natural. It wasn't space as they knew it. The darkness pressed against the fleet, palpable and suffocating. Ships began to vanish, not destroyed but erased, as if they had never existed. No explosions, no debris, only silence. On the flagship, the sensors flickered and died. Alarms blared, their shrill cries echoing in the cold, still air. Targos shouted commands, his voice growing hoarse, but no one moved. The bridge crew was frozen in terror, their faces pale as the realization sank in. They weren't just losing the battle. They were being unmade. The voice returned, calm and resolute. You were warned. Targos gripped the console, his rage now tinged with desperation. Show yourselves. Face us like warriors, not cowards hiding behind tricks. There was no response. The darkness outside grew deeper, closer, as though it had a will of its own. And then the crew felt it. A presence, vast and ancient, brushing against their minds. It wasn't hostile, but it was overwhelming, forcing them to confront the insignificance of their power, the fragility of their so-called empire. Vera broke the silence, her voice trembling but steady enough to be heard. Admiral, we have to leave. This isn't a battle we can win. This isn't even a war. It's a warning. Targos turned to her, his pride battling with the undeniable truth. For all his bluster, he knew she was right. Whatever Earth was, whatever humanity had become, it wasn't something the Empire could conquer. Not now. Not ever. But it was already too late. The Dominion's wrath shuddered, its systems failing one by one. The air grew heavy, as if the ship itself was being crushed under the weight of Earth's silent power. The bridge crew stared at Targos, waiting for an order he couldn't give. He had led them here, and now he was powerless to save them. And then, as suddenly as it had begun, it stopped. The darkness receded. The stars returned, shining cold and indifferent. The fleet's remaining ships, few as they were, found themselves adrift but intact. Systems flickered back online, and silence fell over the bridge once more. Earth had spoken, and its message was clear. Leave and never return. Targos stared at the planet below, its surface serene, its cities untouched. He clenched his fists, his pride screaming for retaliation. But he knew better. This wasn't a victory for Earth. It was a mercy. Pull us back, he said finally, his voice hollow. We're leaving. The fleet limped away, battered and broken in ways that couldn't be measured by damage reports. As the Sol system faded into the distance, the silence aboard the Dominion's wrath was heavy with unspoken truths. The Empire had faced something it couldn't understand, let alone defeat. For Targos, the retreat was a bitter pill to swallow. For Vera and the rest of the crew, it was a lesson, a reminder that even the greatest empires had limits. And for Earth, it was just another day. A quiet, deadly reminder that some battles didn't need to be fought to be won.